Hi there, my name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk with you about Vedic astrology, how it's affecting all of us this week, how it's going to affect your week. You can contact me personally for readings at 508 525 0001, or you can email me at Gary Gomes G, the letter G, at gmail.com. Okay, I'm going to repeat the contact information again just for your uh, sake and for mine. You can contact me either through text messaging or through a phone call at 508 525 0001 or at Gary Gomes Gary Gomes G at gmail.com. All right, so I'm here today to talk to you about Vedic astrology, its impact on you, its impact on the world in general. We're going to look at that map again. And we're also going to talk about an upcoming eclipse, a lunar eclipse on May 5th. So that's going to be a fairly important eclipse. I think it may be the most important eclipse this year, to be truthful. Because it's going to be one of the next to the last eclipses in Libra and Aries and affecting those two signs. And that pattern has been going on for a while now. So we've been stuck in sort of a Libra and Aries pattern. So leadership versus partnership. Uh, and there's been sort of what I would call a um, adversarial relationship, which develops when Rahu and Ketu are in those two signs. And so I'm going to show you the chart of what's happening right now. And then we're going to slip to the eclipse charts. Okay, so this is actually something else. This is so don't look at this. And we're going to go to a transit chart. Now chart. Okay. And so begin. We'll make it New Bedford, Massachusetts, because that's where I'm talking from. Okay. No disparagement to the rest of the world, but this is my locale. Oh, and I don't want to go to the outpatient clinic. I want to go. It's really no real difference in degrees. So this is the chart for today as I'm talking to you right at this moment. And we have a Cancer rising. The moon's in the second house of money, but also hearing from the ancestors. This is a part of the chart, which essentially harkens back to our past. So people who have influenced us in our lives, our parents, their parents, their parents. So pretty much the legacy of wealth or money that we've attained from them, or else learning or knowledge. Okay, so it's a time. This is considered to be a time to honor um, those who passed on, those who came before us. So if you want to put flowers on a grave, now is a great day to do it. Or if you want to send some kind of donation out on behalf of those who passed away, now is a great time to do it. The chart overall for today is fairly good. A little bit rough for relationships because Mars is aspecting the seventh house. So it makes us a little bit more testy, a little more bellicose, perhaps right now. Venus is in the 11th house, which is a very good placement. So that gives fulfillment of ambitions or goals or dreams. it'll move to Gemini within about 3 to 4 days, which is really interesting because that'll make us more inclined to be sociable and to even link up sexually with other the people if we have that inclination. It's kind of a dangerous combination for married people because there'll be a temptation to cheat with Venus Mars conjunctions, especially in Gemini. But I think you'll also see people just being much more social, more active, but also more aggressively active. And what I mean by that is there'll be a lot more many more discussions about beliefs, ideologies, and things like that, and a lot of discussion about media. Now, if we go back to this, and this is a continuing theme of my presentations, and I think one of the reasons it's so prominent is because Mercury has been so um, dominant this year. So there, a lot of the news coming out has been about communications, has been around about earthquakes, which is actually are controlled by Mercury and Mars to a very large extent, and also about uh, politics, which is and entertainment scandals. And we have a Mercury Rahu Jupiter conjunction along with the Sun over here. So this does mean governments and bosses will become more repressive. They'll show a need to exercise their dominance. That won't be popular, to be truthful. It'll be a bad decision for them to do that. We've sort of seen that already happen with whether or not you like or dislike certain hosts on television, like Tucker Anthony. I'll just use him as Tucker Carlson, excuse me. On TV, it's cost Fox pretty much about the same amount of money as it cost them in the Dominion lawsuit. And so essentially, it was a decision which was they made. It's not a particularly, it's as news stories go, it's not a huge news story, but it does have political ramifications over the next couple of years. It's going to have ramifications for what's let out. We're also seeing increasing activity around the two presumptive presidential candidates, President Biden and Donald Trump. More and more scandals coming out in connection with them. So essentially, and again, it depends on how much you favor one candidate or one perspective over another. But the Biden situation seems to be focused around his son, and but also it seems to be escalating to other family members. And the Trump situation just seems to be an unending array of lawsuits, lawsuits and also potential criminal charges. So it's going to be it's going to be an interesting few months, and especially I was saying until around June 15th when Mercury finally becomes free of Rahu. But you will see a lot of stuff because Mercury is retrograde. You will see a lot of stuff dragged up from the past. I'm feeling it myself personally. I'm hitting a lot of things that were that I've forgotten about for many years that are all of a sudden popping into my mind and saying, "Hey, that wasn't right." So it's really weird when you can experience it yourself. Um, and and I think a lot of folks are trying to come to peace with certain situations in which they felt they were hurt or damaged or upset. And also some people are trying to go through transformations because Rahu with the sun makes us reconsider all our life options and whether or not we're wasting our lives. So actually, it can be a kind of a beneficial time, especially with Sun and Jupiter being together, to reconsider our actions, reconsider our strategies, and also to try to reform our lives. The Saturn aspect on that conjunction, and I'm focusing so much on that conjunction because it's so important, is going to have some kind of an effect on whether or not we're able to make changes, because Saturn has us kind of locked into pre-existing patterns that are tough to break. If we go to, so everything is on this side of the zodiac pretty much, between Moon and Saturn. So Moon's in the second house, so it focuses on money, it focuses on other people's money, so spouse's money. The focus is on luck and whether or not we feel we've been lucky or treated well. Our egos are big right now. Okay, Sun is very strong. Rahu is very strong as well, trying to smash that down and tear it up, trying to reconstruct us. Jupiter's trying to give us some guidance on it, and Mercury's giving us some mixed communications or some what I would call back memories of losses and the ways people have lied to us or misrepresented us in the past. Now, it's not healthy to dwell on the past. It is healthy to learn from mistakes. So that's what I'd encourage you to do, especially over the next week, because it's to focus on what errors you may have made in your life. Look for new opportunities to free yourself from that repeated behavior, because with Rahu and Ketu, the north and south lunar nodes have to do with obsessions. Okay, so things we're obsessed about, things we can't let go of. And it's healthier to let go. So the things you let go of, if they're meant to come back to you, they will come back to you. And it's not healthy to be angry at everybody all the time, but sometimes anger can promote change. It can promote growth. It can promote effort. So these aren't necessarily bad combinations. They feel a little bit uncomfortable, to be honest. Especially when the ego is strong and you feel like you can do anything, and then you have this dragging force behind you. Now we're going to go to the eclipse. So we're going to go to the start of the eclipse. This will be for May 5th, the start of the eclipse, and the strongest part of the eclipse. And I'm doing that for a couple of reasons. So this is the start of the lunar eclipse. So it starts in Cancer. All right. So it's interesting that I'm doing this forecast. I was pushed back. I was planning on doing this forecast a little bit earlier when Mars was in the first house. But the eclipse will occur when Venus and Mars are together. So there may be that desire to break free or to socialize more or to do things you really enjoy more, or even to get more active or involved with the opposite sex or the same sex, depending on your proclivity. This Jupiter, so we have the same conjunction but I will warn you that will lead to losses. Okay, it will lead to either loss of relationship or a loss of position unless you're not attached, unless you're unattached already. Okay, and Rahu is retrograde, Mercury is retrograde, Jupiter's direct, Sun is always direct. So we have the same conjunction over here in the 10th house of action. So be aware that a lot of your actions on that day are not going to go ahead as smoothly as planned. This eclipse takes place in the middle of the day. It doesn't really hit the Americas at all. It hits mostly Europe and Africa. Okay, and it's going to be visible all throughout Europe, all throughout most of Europe. I believe England is about the only place that's exempt from it, and all the way through Asia, through most of Asia, and definitely in Africa. So those will be the areas where it's most pronounced. And let's see now. And if we go to the full eclipse, so moons with K2, not exact degree, which is good. Last time we had a last degree, which is really kind of a pain, or an exact degree, which is really kind of a pain to deal with. And this is the sun. This is the eclipse at its height. So, oops, I got to fix this. Sorry about that, folks. I have to update this. Okay, so this is PM, not AM, right? Oh, and I'm going to stop the share. I should have done this earlier. And, whoops, I can't do it from here. Sorry, folks. I have to go back to the chart I was working on. So that won't take long. And stop this share and go back to this one. Okay. Share, update. Right. And so the eclipse at its maximum will occur in Leo. So this will give us a lot of lessons to learn about our ego, focusing on what we want in life. There's a lot of confusion. I've been talking with a lot of clients and a lot of people I do regular readings for, and they're just really, really confused right now. And that's really the Mercury retrograde, the Rahu conjunction, doing a lot of that activity. People who are Gemini suns, Virgo suns in Vedic astrology, or have moons in that sign, or have rising signs in that sign, will feel it much more strongly. But everybody will feel a little bit confused by all these planets in Aries, and it depends on what area of life that you're in. The Aries rules in your chart. So I think one of the things you'll see is with the Moon K2 conjunction over here, it'll make people disinterested in losses, more interested in what they can learn, more interested in what they can gain. Venus and Mars are in the 11th house. It'll be good for gains. It'll be good for new friendships, but you'll also be fighting with old friends. Okay, so friends that have, so people that have this combination, they've probably gone through, since Mercury's essentially the dominant planet connected with friendships, a lot of people have had quite a few problems with friendships over the past few weeks. And that'll continue, unfortunately, over the next until around May 14th, and it'll become clearer what the damage to the friendship actually is, and whether or not you can proceed from the friendship. But I'm going to tell you flat out that if a friend has betrayed you or has turned on you during this period, during this Mercury retrograde period, they were never your friend. They were essentially just using you for a time, because the truth, one of the things that's almost a cardinal rule during eclipses, if there are certain planets connected with speech or knowledge or wisdom, and they're affected by the eclipse, and Venus is also a truth-telling planet. It's affected by this eclipse because of Mars conjunction with Venus, and also Moon being in Venus's sign. It'll tell you a lot about love. It'll tell you a lot about friendship, because Mercury is definitely, and it'll tell you a lot about people lying to you uh, over a relatively long period of time to be your friend. So essentially, people using you. So if you feel sad about a friendship breaking up at this time, don't. It's really essential that you resolve this friendship in order to progress and to do well in life. It is not a bad thing. And the eclipse will reveal a lot of that over the next few months. Okay. Eclipse results will affect people for a long time. Sometimes it's difficult to see in individual charts when the eclipse actually occurs, because a person may have no planets engaged at all with that particular point in space. But you'll notice effects when eclipse points pass over, or when planets pass over those eclipse points. So you'll see a lot more results happening over, I would say, in the fall, due to this eclipse. And there'll be another eclipse on October 25th, and another eclipse in November. So just be on the lookout for people trying to sell you things, or trying to mislead you, or basically lying to you. You know, and it was coming out now. It's been happening for a few years, because one of the reasons I know it's been happening for a few years is because we have Saturn aspect in this eclipse. It could have been happening for as long as 30 years. Okay. So essentially this particular combination tends to clear the air out of a lot of stuff that's been hidden for a while. Also, I've been noticing it. You may not have, depending on which news sources you cover, or that you utilize. But basically, there's been a lot of exposure over stories that have been suppressed for a few years. So this will be interesting to see, especially since 2019. So you'll see a lot of stories start to come out over the next few months, and they'll start to gather steam. Now, whether there'll be an attempt, there's a large scale attempt to suppress or downplay the importance of these news stories. And I'm not just talking about um, from mainstream media. I'm also talking about, or from alternative media, or from independent media. I'm also talking about internationally. I'm also talking about governments lying to their people for a long period of time. And I think you're going to see a lot of international shakeups over the next few years. So that'll be very important. Let's go and look at the actual signs for this month. Then we'll look at the world map. But I don't want to pontificate too much and be judgmental about what people have done and what reasons they've had for doing it. But the last time we saw something like this happen was a combination like this happen was in around the 1970s, the mid 1970s, roughly around Watergate. A little bit after that, a little bit before that, actually, in 1960s, the 1960s, a lot of the stuff we heard about the Vietnam War was fabricated, started to come out around that time. And also, a lot of stuff that happened during the Clinton years was essentially, it was both a fabrication. There was both. I would say making a mountain out of a molehill. You know, depending on how you view Clinton, but also a lot of attacks on dissident groups during the 1990s and going off into the early 2000s. We've set up a pattern from the eclipse points from around 2003 or so to now, in which or actually from the 1990s or so, in which we've seen governments pick out certain groups, or select certain groups to make enemies of. And this is true not only in the United States, but across the world. And a lot of that has been scapegoated. Some of it's been accurate, so in fairness, some of it's been accurate. Some of it's been scapegoated. And we have other problems which are more serious than these groups, and this is distraction. This is theater. So I'm just saying that bluntly. I'm not saying that to essentially make anybody angry with me. Some of the, like I said, some of the threats have been legitimate, unquestionably. But a lot of it's political theater, and it's distracting from bigger issues like, the internationalization of the world, globalization overall, and the consolidation of business control over governments internationally. So I'm not calling for a purge or a revolution. That's not what I'm saying right now. I'm saying just be aware of be aware of the magician's trick. Be aware of what's going on over here, which has maybe an element of truth to it, and your hand's over here. In the meantime, you can't see my other hand or what my other hand is doing. So just be aware of that. Right. So that's the world of politics, though. That's, to be honest. All right. So let's look at individual signs. Individual signs, I have to check my time. Individual signs, Aries, a lot of focus on luck, enhancing their getting what's their due from what they worked at in the past, but also failing to communicate what they exactly want. I mean, I think that's one thing that you'll see over the next few months. There'll be an assumption that people should know what you've been doing, and they won't. They'll sort of like blow it off. There'll be some communication problems with spouse. That's been a trait of Aries for the past few months, and that'll continue over the next few weeks. And Aries and Libra are really kind of in a difficult situation relationship-wise with these eclipses. They won't really be out of it until late November, and there'll be this kind of like what I would call blow up, cool down, blow up, cool down. It won't get really, really bad for them, I don't think, until around late July, because that's when Venus goes retrograde, and there'll be a feeling of, I've had enough, especially for Aries. Not as much for Libra, but especially for Aries. And the other thing is a lot of focus on desire for money for the sign, which again has been kind of a problem for the sign over the past few months. And Saturn, friends are a little bit of a waste of space. They'll be a little bit of a drag on you, but you will make some gains, but very, very slowly. For the sign Taurus. Taurus has Venus and Mars in the second house, so there'll be anger and also greed emanating from the sign, both on the part of the person, both on the part of the Taurus, and also the relationship partner, because the seventh house is involved. Moon and Ketu, again, watch out for illnesses based upon overconsumption or based upon carelessness, because that Moon Ketu conjunction down there. In terms of children, for both Aries and Taurus, children will be fine. But children for Taurus will be a little bit misrepresentation, a little bit greedier, a little bit tougher to deal with. And relationship partners will seem moody or a bit depressed as well. For work life, Taurus is doing terrific, doesn't have to do anything new, but it is working awfully hard. And they'll continue for another couple of years. That'll be their main focus in life, to be honest. For Gemini, Venus and Mars will be in the first house, give potential for gains and potential for luck based upon past credits. Also, some potential for recognition from distant places. But also, they'll have to watch out for overspending and for trying to treat themselves because they feel hurt. Okay. Mars, the Lord of the sixth house, is in the first house. That's kind of a combination for overindulgence as well. So we have a combination of the 12th Lord and the sixth Lord in the first house. So just be a little bit leery about sexual adventurism if you're inclined in that direction, and also be wary of what kinds of foods or how much you drink, because that'll get you into a lot of trouble. If you abstain and you're in that sign, that's fine. But again, don't be fooled by friends coming back and saying, I didn't mean that, especially after May 14th. Don't make that mistake. There'll be potential for gains for the sign, and also in terms of career, slow but steady progress. A lot of recognition, especially from distant places, from far off places. For Cancer, we have the moon in, right now, the moon is, for the eclipse, the moon is in Libra. The moon is in, right now, the moon is in, let's go back to the now chart. Moon is in, and don't worry about it saying Turkey, it's going to be the same for Turkey. The moon is in Leo, which we have said before, is a focus on people who've gone before us, people from our past. The focus will be on money. And K2 is in the fourth house, so family life will be a little bit disrupted. They'll feel a little bit disheartened or a little bit pessimistic about the future. They'll feel a little bit frustrated about career growth, but you'll actually see career growth will actually start to improve over the next few months, especially after May 14th. And finances will improve a great deal after May 14th. The other thing to look at from this particular sign is you see Saturn in the eighth house. Now, that's a particular kind of a Saturn transit in which a person has to essentially blast away or enter new environments. They have to blast away the past or enter new environments in order to succeed. This isn't a bad transit, but it is kind of a rebirth transit of Saturn. So over the next couple of years, you'll be looking and saying, here, I've been limiting myself too much. It'll be a slow progress, a slow process, but you'll be looking at that a lot over the next couple of months, and we'll start right now during this transit, and especially during the lunar eclipse. Now, for this sign, and again, watch out for arguments with relationship partners. Mars is in the 12th. No new relationship partners for this sign right now. For Leo, the moon is right now in the first house, so it's, again, a lot of attention on people who've gone before, our ancestors, the influence of our ancestors, but also with the moon going to K2, we will be on liberating ourselves from our thoughts, from our past. So we'll be very intuitive during this eclipse. Good time to do rituals, good time to meditate, good time to do any kind of spiritual work around May 5th, May 6th. But you can engage in what I would call making of wish lists, the psychic realms or the intuitive realms are really open. They're going to be open very strongly for the next couple of weeks. And this will allow you to connect with people in ways you hadn't expected you could. The other thing is, so intuition will be very strong. And the other thing is Saturn, relationship life will seem, again, a little static, but fine. You know, it's a contract. You've entered into a contract with people you're not going to get. You're not going to be faulted for that. Also, relationship partners will be tending to call the shots during this particular transit. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. For Virgo, so this is Sun in Virgo. This is, again, we're going back to the Vedic system. This is September 15th through October 15th. Sun in Virgo, and again, adjust that. So April 15th through May 15th is Aries, May 15th through June 15th is Taurus, June 15th through July 15th is Gemini, July 15th through August 15th is Cancer, August 15th through September 15th is Leo, and September 15th through October 15th is Virgo. So when you have, for people who have Sun or other prominent planets in Virgo, be a little bit of a confusing time for them. They'll feel a little bit stuck or limited. Venus will be in the ninth house. They should go in a direction in which their fortunes will be better. Okay, so they should really. This is one of the few times you'll hear me say this, but it's time to look out for your mercenary interests or your financial interests, especially because K2's in the second house, and people will steal money from you. People will steal things that rightfully belong to you. And you're going to be a little bit angry about it because Mars is aspecting the first house. And with the moon in the third house, you'll be a little bit moody. This is during the eclipse. Moon is in the 12th house. You're going to be a little bit worried about losses as the week goes on until roughly Tuesday. And I think one of the things you'll see also is that for this sign, Saturn is in the sixth house, so it makes the sign much more positive about work, much more positive about cleaning yourself up. Sun, Jupiter, Mercury, Rahu are in the eighth house. There'll be unexpected windfalls, but they'll kind of disappear quickly. That's one of the downsides to that combination. So you're still kind of locked in place financially, although you will get financial gains. Venus is in the ninth house. Do what makes you happy for the sign. That's really the best thing. If you want to advance your career, go for it. If you want to advance your love life, go for it. This is one of the few signs that that's actually good for, because you'll have Venus and Mars in the 10th house to be very aggressive, very lovable. The downside is, though, we still have that Mercury-Rahu conjunction, and there's still a potential of connecting with people who lie a lot or who misrepresent themselves. So just be careful when you're dealing with people. For Libra, and this is going to be true over the next couple of months, I'm afraid. For a Libra, K2's in the first. We have that cluster of planets in the seventh house. Very, very strong combination for getting approached by people, relationship opportunities. I wouldn't take any. I would investigate business opportunities, especially if they're overseas. I would investigate. You'll get sudden gains of income, unexpected gains of income this coming week. Mars is in the ninth house, so that's actually a wealth-producing combination for this chart. So you'll actually get gains of vehicles or property, and there's strong potential of that. K2 in the second house, this sign has a lot of trouble making itself understood. This has been kind of a problem for it over the past year and a half. A lot of those communicational disorders have been very prominent. Saturn is in the fifth house has a very good placement for Saturn. So anything really far out or unusual or technical you want to explore, go for it. It's really a good time to do that. All those planets in the seventh house are kind of exciting. They make you feel good. But again, um, impulsive action, especially in terms of relationships, be careful about that, especially in terms of communications. Be careful of that, okay? So just, don't commit to anything until at least May 14th when Mercury is going direct. And I would recommend even later than that, to be honest with you. I wouldn't commit to new directions in life until after June. Okay. And so this chart is fairly good for Libra. It'll be good for money. Changes in directions is a lot of temptation. Making changes in directions, changes in relationships. Wait at least until November. Scorpio has Venus in the seventh house, Mars in the eighth. So again, we have the potential for a good relationship. Beautiful people approach you, but with Mars in the eighth house, it'll be a little bit contentious, a little bit difficult to deal with. Saturn is in the fourth house aspect in the sixth house. So again, beware. The sign should be a little bit aware of overindulgence or a little bit aware of cockiness, not to take itself, not to think it's invulnerable, because that will be a weakness for this particular sign. We have a lot of prominent planets career-wise. A difficult month for this sign, at least until May 14th. Moon is in the 10th house. By the eclipse next week, it'll be in the 12th house. That will be a time in which you'll have to sort of reconsider your options in life, and also start working on a lot of things on an inner basis. Again, it doesn't mean you can't keep on doing things, socializing, hanging out with people. With the Mercury Rahu, the one thing I want to avoid about that combination is I don't want to make people paranoid that they can't trust anybody. That's not the case. It's more the case of examine everything that's said to you, reflect on it, be patient, don't make rash decisions. Don't trust everybody that tells you something that seems too hard to believe. Okay? For Sagittarius has Mars in the seventh house, so again, some relationship friction, some problems with overindulgence from squeeze with Venus in the sixth house. Rahu, Mercury, Sun, and Jupiter in the fifth house. This is actually a good combination for this particular sign, because you'll be getting a lot of credit, perhaps a little too much credit, for good things you've done in the past, but it will be favorable to you. There will be a lot of problems with politics for the sign. This is a United States chart. We have a Sagittarius rising sign for the United States, or I have one. I use one. Several other astrologers do. Some other astrologers do not use that sign, and I'm aware of that. But political life will be very, very active, and this will be true with your work and even in relationship life. So again, good potential for lovers, but be careful, especially from other countries. And for Capricorn, we have Rahu, Mercury, and Sun in the fourth house, Saturn's in the second house. So the Sun will seem a little bit reflective, a little bit conservative, but they'll be going through some big changes, especially in terms of spiritual awakening and spiritual activity happening. So this may not be a big flash for you, but there'll be a lot of conflicts, emotional conflicts. Venus is in the fifth, which is a good placement. Mars is in the sixth, which again reflects the idea that the person will work a lot on themselves. Ketu's in the 11th. This is a chance for, or Ketu's in the 10th, This is quote unquote a chance for enlightenment, a chance to really break through and understand some things about your education, what you know, what you perceive. And life is all about perceptions, isn't it? So I may see something differently than you do. I know this is not a good time to have open discussions, but you know, there's no such thing as a bad time to have open discussions. And I think we'd all get along much better just a little bit of philosophizing. Trying to think if that was the right pronunciation of that word, but I think it was. A little bit of time for philosophizing about um, where you agree with people in life or in politics or in religion and where you disagree and trying to find common ground. Tough to do, you know, just because there are a lot of elements in society that encourage us to belong to one camp or one group or another. It's a lot tougher to be an individual, but we're all individuals and we're all in a group. Okay. So it's a lot tougher to identify as one than as many. But identifying as one is really the path to sanity, I think, personally. Um, the other thing is for Capricorn, just be aware of um, relationships will have some problems, and there'll be some problems with communications and relationships all through the week. For Aquarius, Aquarius has Saturn in the first house, and it's actually one of the few well-placed planets in this or well-placed signs in this chart. You have a lot of energy, a lot of courage with Jupiter, Rahu, and Mercury in the third house. Venus is in the fourth, Mars is in the fifth. So you have a lot of aggressive energy working on your behalf, a lot more. K2's in the ninth. So spiritually, you're going to have to do things, figure out things on your own, but that's not a bad thing. And so again, good for money, good for progress, good for fulfillment of desires for Aquarius. Pisces, last but not least, Rahu, Sun, and Mercury, problems with communication. Jupiter, problems with communications in the second house. Venus, desire for a more casual life or a more easygoing life. Mars is in the fourth. There'll be arguments with spouse. Mercury is the seventh lord. There'll be some distrust of spouse for the sign. Pisces has a little bit of a problem with relationships as well as Libra and Aries do, but it's not as obvious. And it's more short term. It's more limited to 2 months for Pisces. So the next couple of months, be careful about relationship potential breakups, unless it feels like it's the right time to get out the door. The other thing is K2's in the eighth, so a lot of intuition, a lot of spiritual intuition happening. Saturn's in the 12th, a lot of expenses. Now let's go to that global map, and I hope I haven't made any real bad gaffes in staying on that first screen too long. All right, so this is where we're expecting to see some problem areas in the world or some good areas happening. Okay, so Mars is passing close to Hawaii, some potential for, and we have Sun, Mercury, Rahu, Jupiter happening in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, not really, and close to Alaska. So we'll see some disruption in Alaska, definitely, and probably Western Canada, northwestern Canada. And we have a descending line, a descending Mars line passing through those. And that passes close to Hawaii. So there's some danger of volcanic activity or some kind of accidents in Hawaii, but that's not a sure thing. Vancouver is definitely prime. British Columbia, Alberta is a little bit in danger as well. So to be honest with you, is this entire region between Oregon and Texas, I'm afraid to say. So you'll see a lot of what I would call catastrophic events or backed up catastrophic events coming to this part of the West. So we're aware of the flooding danger in California right now, but you'll see flooding danger. You'll see danger of really bad weather and even some fighting around Texas, Louisiana, and up through Minnesota, and all through this part of the United States, up through um, Missouri, Oklahoma, all the way up through North and South Dakota. So that's a little bit dangerous. If we're looking at, and there's a Saturn line influencing it too, especially up around the northern United States. In terms of the East Coast, most of the action is focused around my part of the country, which is essentially this region right here, and is I'm trying to. There's a Jupiter line running close to Boston, so that's actually good. But the other lines are and affecting Washington and Delaware. There'll be scandals coming out about leaders about because the Jupiter Rahu combination always includes some and scandals coming out about academia too, just because of the proximity to Harvard and Yale and essentially a lot of the institutions of higher education. I know they're not the only ones in the United States. I'm painfully aware of that, but they tend to be thought leaders to larger academia, and I think you'll see a lot of scandals coming up around those areas. The other part we have down here is we have a lot of not much activity happening west of Argentina, Colombia, Venezuela, but some violence, some potential for violence happening in northern South America and throughout Venezuela and Peru and down into Argentina and even into Chile. Chile's a little bit affected here. So this could mean earthquakes or damage, but I'm more thinking it'll be more political struggles or more political violence. As we go towards Brazil, some scandals. Brazil will be embroiled in some scandals or some protests. Near the Azores and the Canaries, we have a moon line coming. So again, we have to watch out for ship catastrophes. We have to watch out for commerce catastrophes, maybe even flooding or hurricanes. Saturn is going down to Western Africa. It's hitting Iceland, so maybe some economic damage in Iceland. We have a Mars line going through Ireland, all the way through Central Africa, down by Libya, down through the Central African Republic, down all the way down into Zimbabwe, it looks like, and South Africa. So I would expect to see some violence. This is really roughly where the Sudan crisis is happening. We have a Rahu Jupiter line here, and civil war will break out next week, by the end of next week, definitely. We have a Rahu Jupiter line, so there'll be political scandals in Turkey and Eastern Europe. Also, some political scandals around the Ukraine. That looks very strong to me, and around Saudi Arabia and Eastern Africa, especially around Mozambique. For Eastern Europe overall and into the Ukraine conflict, it looks like there'll be a change in the Ukraine conflict. There already is a change, so the weapons are getting much more aggressive. But I think we're actually we're a couple of months away from serious peace negotiations, but I think there's a lot of pressure on developing those. There's a Venus-Saturn line surrounding India. There's also a moon line running through. So this is by the end of the week. There'll be another, and again, I'm sorry to pile on Afghanistan, but there'll be some national crises in Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Iran, and maybe connected with weapons this time. Maybe connected with rebellions. I'm sorry for stammering there. Saturn, Eastern India, it has a moon line coming down. There's a Venus line. Sorry, there's a ascending Saturn line coming down in Western India, and also coming through Pakistan and Afghanistan as well. And I think with this particular line, this part of the world will come into broad focus. There's a Venus line coming through roughly Bengal or the Middle Eastern part of India, and I think one of the things we can expect to see is some flooding, but also some good economic news coming out for India around this time. So China is still afflicted by Mars lines. Thank God that the rest of Southeast Asia is, or this part of Southeast Asia is a little bit exempt from them. But there's a Mars line coming out of China. That to me indicates they're more aggressive. Borneo is directly in the line of that. Indonesia is directly in the line of that. Australia is directly in the line of that. So I'm not predicting there'll be a conflict between those areas, but it's something to watch out for, especially China getting more aggressive and more domineering. And there's a Rahu line, so there's going to be some panic or some government crisis in Japan, New Guinea, and Australia. And New Zealand is, again, economically, New Zealand's hurting a little bit, but nothing else. So that's it for this week. I hope you've learned something. I hope I've given you some useful information about the next week. And I look forward to seeing you next week. I love you all. I wish you all realization of at all levels of life, your dreams, your spiritual life, your happiness and fulfillment. Okay, you're very important to me. I love you. Please share, like, subscribe, comment. It's a way to grow the channel, and I want to do more. Okay, thanks a lot, folks. Be safe, be careful, and God bless everyone. And may the Great Spirit watch out for you. Bye-bye, everyone.